I was rewatching the Bardock special a few weeks ago, not all of it. Just the one shot, the pod, Guinea holding it, the little window with Kakarot inside screaming his lungs out the way he always is, and then it goes off into the black. And Bardock stands there looking at a decision he can't take back. And the thing that stuck with me wasn't the emotion of it. It was the paperwork. Because around that same time, on that same planet, there was another Saiyan baby getting loaded into a pod and fired off into space. Same year, same reason. Technically, somebody in an office looked at a number on a screen and decided this kid was a problem. Broly's number was too high. Kakarot's was too low. That's it. That's the entire difference between the greatest hero in Dragon Ball and its most tragic monster. Two babies, two pods, two exiles, and the only variable separating them is which direction the reading went. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. So obviously the question shows up. What if you flip it? What if the low-class throwaway kid, the one who lands in East District 439 and gets found by an old man in the woods, what if he's the one carrying it? What if Goku was like Broly? Now, before we start, I want to be honest with you about something, because I know how these usually go. 9 times out of 10, somebody asks this question, and the answer is basically, Goku is really strong now, everybody dies, the end. Frieza gets folded in 12 seconds. Cell never happens. Roll credits. And I get the appeal. But that's not a story, that's a power-scaling argument with a plot stapled to it. Because here's the thing people forget about Broly. Broly is not a power fantasy. Broly is a horror story. His whole deal isn't that he's strong. It's that his strength is something that happens to him. It shows up, it takes the wheel, and when it's done, he's standing in the wreckage of something he never chose to destroy. That's the character. The power isn't a gift, it's a passenger. So if we're doing this properly, the question isn't how strong Goku is. We know how strong he is. The question is what it costs the people standing near him. 2 ground rules, so you know I'm playing fair. 1. The growth thing is real, and it's the engine of the whole story. Broly doesn't have a power level, he has a slope. The longer he fights, the higher he climbs, and nobody's ever found the top. So in this version, every second Goku spends in a real fight, he gets stronger. Which means Goku does not lose fights. He can't. So I'm not going to insult you by pretending the tension is whether he wins. 2. The legendary Super Saiyan is not Super Saiyan. Completely separate things, and I'm keeping them separate, and it matters enormously to where this goes. And I'm going to answer the awkward questions instead of walking past them. How does Grandpa Gohan die if the kid's a monster from day one? Why does Raditz matter at all? If Goku's this strong, how does he ever end up dead on Snake Way? I've got answers for every one of them, and I'm not skipping a single one. All right, let's go back to the start, not Goku's start, Kakarot's. There's a technician doing rounds in the low-class birthing ward, and he is bored out of his mind, because this is the worst job on planet Vegeta. You walk a row of incubation pods, you point a scouter at each screaming infant, you write down a number. Every number is between 1 and 5, every day, forever. Nobody has ever been promoted out of this room. Pod 14, Kakarot, son of Bardock and Guinea, which is to say, son of nobody. He points the scouter. 10,000. He doesn't move. He doesn't file it, he doesn't flag it. He just stands there because 10,000 is what a grown elite reads on a good day, and it's coming out of something that weighs less than his boot. It's double what the prince was born at. The prince. And that alone should be the whole story. That's already the most alarming thing that has ever happened in this room. Except it isn't the alarming part, and he finds that out about 4 seconds later when the baby starts crying. Which is nothing. Kakarot cries constantly, it's the one thing on his file. The number starts to move. 12,000, 14. He taps the side of the unit, because that's what you do. 19,000. The lens cracks, then the housing goes, and the whole thing pops off the side of his head. He makes it 6 steps down the corridor before he stops, and it isn't the number that stopped him. Elites have big numbers. It's that there was no top. Every reading he has ever taken in his life settled somewhere. This one didn't settle. It just kept going up for as long as the child was upset, at a rate that had nothing to do with anything, and the only reason it stopped was that the equipment gave out first. He goes back with a spare. The crying stopped the way crying does. 10,000, flat, calm, sitting there like it never moved at all. There is no box on the form for that. There is no box on the form for this child does not appear to have a maximum. He reports it, because what else is he going to do? And a report like that goes up, and on planet Vegeta, the chain goes up to exactly one place. And everybody in that building knows what happened the last time an infant's number landed on Frieza's desk. They know the kid's name. They know he got put in a pod and fired at a dead rock and written off, and that was maybe a year ago. And nobody has said his name out loud since. Bardock hears before it gets that far. Guinea hears from Bardock. And this is the part that gets me, because in the story Bardock sends his son to Earth as a long shot, a gamble. Maybe the boy lives, maybe he grows up, maybe he gets even. It's hope. It's a middle finger to the universe. Here, it's neither. Here it's panic. Guinea moves first. She doesn't argue, she doesn't cry. She goes and gets a pod and Bardock doesn't ask where. And they don't sit down and pick a target world for strategic value. They pull up the accessible database and they look for the most worthless planet on it. Ours. Somewhere so weak that dispatching a purge team wouldn't be worth the fuel, somewhere nobody has any reason to ever look at again. Ow. They're not sending him to Earth to conquer it. They're sending him to Earth to disappear. And Bardock stands at that window one more time, and the last thing he sees is his son screaming and the little internal monitor on the pod ticking up and up and up until the hatch seals and the light goes out. Then everything else happens the way it happens. Frieza, the planet, all of it. And nobody on planet Vegeta ever finds out whether they were right to be scared. The pod comes down in the mountains of East District 439, and an old man named Son Gohan walks out to have a look at the crater because he's 80-something years old, and curiosity has outlived caution. What he finds in there is a baby with a tail who bites him. You know this bit. The kid is feral. He wrecks the house, he attacks the old man, he screams for days on end. And then about a month in, Gohan looks away for 30 seconds, and Kakarot goes over the edge of the ravine behind the house and lands headfirst on the rocks. Gohan carries him back up, expecting to bury him. Instead, the boy wakes up 2 days later, looks at this old stranger, and laughs. And that's it. That's the head injury, working exactly like it does in the real story. It burns the Saiyan out of him, and what's left is the sweetest kid alive. Gohan names Goku and raises him and teaches him the Turtle School basics and tells him stories at night, and Goku turns into a boy who apologizes to Fish. But I need you to hold on to something here, because it's the whole series. That fall changed his mind. It did not change his cells. The gentleness is real. It's the realest thing about him, and it never once stops being real. It's just not where the problem lives. The problem is sitting in his blood, and it's been there since that ward, and it does not care even slightly that he's nice now. Grandpa Gohan doesn't know any of that. What Grandpa Gohan knows is that his grandson, at 4 years old, carries a full-grown boar home by the tusk with one hand, that he put his arm through the doorframe reaching for a rice ball, that he got annoyed with a jar lid once, turned the jar into powder, and then cried about it for an hour. So Gohan handles it the way any decent grandparent handles anything. Patiently, with rules. Don't hit, don't throw, don't get upset near the house. And then there's the moon. He works that one out the hard way. 2 incidents, both survivable, both awful, and by the second one he's joined the dots. Full moon, tail, change. So there's a rule for that too. On full moon nights, Goku sleeps inside, shutters closed, and Grandpa sleeps in the chair by the door. It works for almost a year. Here's how the old man dies. It's a warm night at the end of summer, and Goku is 4.5, and he's thirsty. That's the whole reason. He gets up, he doesn't want to wake Grandpa, and he pushes the shutter open to reach the water barrel outside. Gohan wakes up to an empty chair and the sound of the barrel bursting. He gets out there in time to watch it start. The boy is already past the tree line and already turning, and Gohan does the only thing he knows how to do, which is go at it, not away. He's Turtle School. He spent 60 years being a man who runs toward things, and he is not about to stand in his own yard and watch his grandson become that. So he climbs. He gets up onto its back, and he finds the tail, and he takes it in both hands and pulls. And he's right. That's the thing I need you to sit with. He is completely, absolutely right. The tail is the weak point. It has always been the weak point. Squeeze it, and the whole transformation drops like a switch. And if that thing on the mountain had been an ordinary great ape, then Son Gohan goes back inside, makes tea, and puts a lock on the shutters in the morning. But you already know what this boy does when he's in pain. The number starts climbing. The fur goes light, then lighter, and then The light stops being something reflected and starts being something produced, green, coming up from underneath the skin, and the whole shape of it starts swelling outward like something taking a breath it has no reason to ever finish. Gohan is holding a tail that's now hotter than the inside of a furnace, and he does not let go. He's 80-something years old, and his hands are burning, and he does not let go, because somewhere in the last 4 seconds he's worked out that letting go is worse. Then the valley goes white. You'd have seen it from orbit. And there's no crater. Exactly, because crater means something got moved somewhere else. This is 40 kilometers of mountain range that was rock in the evening and is glass by morning. Goku wakes up in the middle of it around noon the next day, naked, unhurt, not a scratch on him, because of course not. And his tail is gone, burned off at the root by his own energy and cauterized so cleanly he doesn't notice for 2 days. He never grows it back. He never becomes a great ape again, not on Earth, not anywhere, not once in this entire story. The last thing Son Gohan did with his life was reach for the one part of that boy he could actually hurt and hold on, and it killed him, and it worked. Nobody ever finds out. There's no body, not a burned one, not a broken one, there's nothing left to be a body. So the boy does what a 4-year-old does. He decides a monster came. Something came down out of the sky while he was asleep and killed his grandpa and burned the mountains and left him behind. And he tells that story to every single person he meets for the next 10 years, and he tells it honestly because he believes it completely. He's right, by the way. He's just got one detail wrong. He keeps the 4-star ball. It was in the house, and the house was at the edge of it, and a Dragon Ball doesn't care how much energy you put into the air around it. He keeps it because it's grandpa. Remember that. It comes back. Now, Master Roshi felt that. 300 kilometers away on a small island, an old man sat up in the dark and felt something go off in the mountains. And he knew whose mountains they were, because he and Son Gohan had been friends for about 50 years. He's out there within days. And this matters, so I'm going to be specific about it. Goku is not there. Goku is 4 years old and lost somewhere in the wreckage of a mountain range, weeks away from finding his way back to where the house used to be. So Roshi lands in a valley made of glass, and he walks around in it for most of a day, and there is nothing. No house, no friend, no boy, nothing that says a person ever lived there. He assumes the whole family died. What else is he supposed to assume? And he has no explanation. None. Not a theory, not a guess, nothing. And no explanation is a very hard thing for a man who has been alive for 300 years and has personally seen most of what this planet has to offer. So he files it somewhere in the back and tries not to think about it. For 8 years. 8 years later, a kid turns up on his island holding Son Gohan's Dragon Ball. I'm going to move fast through this stretch, because you know it. Bulma hits him with a car. The car does not survive the experience, and neither does Bulma's understanding of physics. By week 2, she's watched this child throw a rock at a pterodactyl and put the rock through the pterodactyl and then through the mountain behind it, and she writes it off as wild kid, weird planet. Bulma is extremely good at writing things off in the early days. But Roshi isn't. Roshi is standing on his beach looking at a boy who's holding a dead man's Dragon Ball, and he asks what happened out there in those mountains. And the kid says a monster came. So Roshi trains him. But, and here's where this genuinely stops being the story you know, Roshi does not train him to get stronger. Everything looks the same. The milk deliveries, the shells, the fieldwork, the whole regimen. But the purpose has flipped. That's not a strength program anymore. That's a governor. Roshi runs that boy on the same route every day for a year, not to build his legs, but to build a floor. A routine so worn in, so automatic, that when the head isn't driving the body, still has somewhere to go. He's teaching him a resting state. He's teaching him boring. Because Roshi works it out fast. He spars the kid a fraction of a percent and notices that minute 3 is harder than minute 1, and minute 6 is harder than minute 3. And this boy is not learning, he's accumulating. So the actual lesson of the turtle school, the thing Roshi drills into him until it's a reflex, until it's below thinking, isn't a technique at all. It's 4 words. Never fight for long. End it on the first exchange. Don't test them. Don't play. Don't take a hit if you can help it, and never ever get angry. Put them down and walk away. Goku spends his entire childhood being taught to treat his own body like a fire in a dry season. The Kamehameha is the other half of it, and Roshi doesn't want to teach it. He teaches it anyway, and I think his reasoning is sound. A boy with one deliberate way to put energy out is safer than a boy who only has accidental ones. Goku's first Kamehameha, age 11, opens a canyon that is still on maps. Roshi's hands shake for about a week. And this is my favorite detail in the whole first act, honestly. Goku has a losing record. 21st Budokai. He gets to the final against Jackie Chun, and it's Roshi, and Roshi is not up there to win a trophy. Roshi is up there to run an exam. He pushes the boy, hard, then meaner than hard. He says things to a 15-year-old that are specifically designed to get in under the skin, and the entire time he is watching the edges of that kid's aura and counting seconds in his head. And Goku holds. 15 years old, getting taken apart in front of thousands of people, and he holds the line, and he loses on his feet. Roshi wins. And when he pulls the mask off later, he isn't proud. He's shaking, because that exam was pass-fail, and the failure condition was the stadium. Same thing at the 22nd. Tien takes it. Goku could have ended that match in a single exchange, and every person who has ever trained with him knows it, and Goku steps out of bounds instead. So the tournament circuit knows Son Goku as this weirdly gifted kid who chokes, great hands, no killer instinct, never wins the big one. That's the reputation. That's the cover. And Roshi built it on purpose. Red Ribbon Army, quickly, because it deserves one sentence and not much more. They took the 4-star ball, Goku went to get it back, and the Turtle School rule held for exactly as long as it took someone to point a gun at him. Nobody in that organization ever filed a report about it, on account of. Krillin dies. Tambourine gets him on that rooftop the way he always does. Goku arrives too late the way he always does. And everything after that goes somewhere. The show never went. Because Roshi built a magnificent cage. 15 years of routine and restraint and never fight for long. 15 years of a boy learning to hold his breath. It is genuinely one of the finest pieces of work anyone in this story ever does. And it was designed for anger. It was built to survive being insulted, being hit, being humiliated in front of a crowd, and it survived all three. It was not designed for grief. Watch the stages because they come back. First, the hair goes dark. Not blonde, darker than it was, and it lifts, and the whites of his eyes go red. That's stage 1. Stage 1 is still him, sort of. Stage 1 is a boy who has decided to kill somebody, and Roshi, watching from 100 meters back, thinks, okay, this is very bad, but this is a boy. Stage 2 is not a boy. Stage 2 is green, and there's nothing behind the eyes when it arrives. No pupils. Nothing that responds to its own name. Roshi screams that name until his voice gives out and it does not turn around, and the last clear thought he has for several minutes is that he was wrong about something fundamental. He thought he'd been training a boy who might one day lose control. He was training a boy who was holding a door shut. I'm not going to do a beat by beat of what happened to King Piccolo's forces that night, because there isn't one. There's no fight. Tambourine isn't a fight. Symbol isn't a fight. And King Piccolo, young again, at the absolute peak of his existence, standing on top of a world he has already finished conquering. King Piccolo takes one look at what is coming down out of the sky at him, and every instinct he has resolves into a single word. Run. He can't run, so he does the only other thing his biology offers him. He spits out the egg. Not as a revenge plan, not as a legacy, not as a scheme, whatever he tells himself in the last half second. Piccolo Jr. is not conceived in hatred in this story. Piccolo Jr. is conceived in blind terror, an escape hatch fired off by a dying animal, and that egg goes down into the earth and stays there while the sky comes apart above it. And then it's over. And it doesn't stop. That's the part that breaks Roshi. King Piccolo has been loose atoms for 90 seconds and the horizon is still getting brighter, and Roshi cannot understand why, because Roshi is thinking about it as a fight, and it isn't one. Nothing is pushing back, so nothing is absorbing it. He didn't fight that night, he vented. Kami feels it from the lookout and makes a conscious decision not to go down there, because he cannot think of a single thing he could contribute except more mass. Here's what that actually looks like, and I want to be precise, because this is the arithmetic the whole series runs on. Directly underneath, the city is gone. At 100 meters, Master Roshi goes through 3 walls and comes out the other side of it, with burns down one side of his body and his hearing wrecked for a month. He lives. He should not have lived, and he knows it, and he never once talks about it afterwards. At 10 kilometers, it's a shockwave and every window facing west. At 100 kilometers, it's a light on the horizon and a bad night on the news. That's the shape of it. It goes out and it thins, because it isn't aimed at anything, it's just a boy with nowhere to put it. And a boy at that level is not a planet killer. Yet. I'll let you do that arithmetic yourself. What ends it, in the end, is a rock. Or that's what it looks like. There's a piece of debris tumbling through the air, thrown up by all of it, and it catches the light wrong. Orange. 4 stars. And something in that shape gets through where a name couldn't. Not the words, the shape. Because there is a version of this person, way down underneath all of it, who is 4 years old and standing in a valley made of glass holding the only thing he has left in the world. The green goes out. Goku comes back to himself somewhere over the ocean, about 400 kilometers from where any of this started, with no memory of getting there. The first thing he does is throw up. The second thing he does is start looking for Krillin. That's part 1. Grandpa Gohan is dead, and his grandson doesn't know he did it. Roshi has been carrying a valley around in his head for 8 years, and has finally, horribly, worked out what made it. There's an egg in the ground that only exists because something was too frightened to do anything else. And there's a 15-year-old over the Pacific who's about to spend 4 months finding out that the Dragon Balls don't work anymore because King Piccolo killed Shenron before any of this started, and Krillin is going to stay dead for a while. Next time, Goku goes to Kami and asks for training, and he's very specific about what kind. He doesn't ask to get stronger. He uses the word off. Kami tells him the truth, which is no. And then Kami teaches him the next best thing, and it works beautifully, and it is absolutely the wrong lesson, because a lock that good works in both directions, and it takes another 5 years and a man with hair down to his knees before anybody finds that out. Part 2, that's the one where he dies. See you there. Quick recap, because some of you are here first, we flipped one variable. Kakarot was born on planet Vegeta with a resting power level of 10,000. Double what the prince was born at, and a reading that climbed for as long as he cried and stopped, only because the scouter gave out first. Bardock and Gine didn't send him to Earth as a gamble. They sent him there to disappear. He still fell into the ravine. He still hit his head. He's still the sweetest kid alive, and that's real, and it never stops being real. It just isn't where the problem lives. Grandpa Gohan died grabbing the tail on a full moon night, which was the correct move, and the pain of it opened something the old man had no way of knowing was there. 40 kilometers of mountain turned to glass. No body, no memory. The boy decided a monster came and told that story honestly for a decade, and he was right about everything except the address. And last part ended with a 15-year-old floating over the Pacific 400 kilometers from where he lost control, throwing up in the water, going to look for a friend who is already dead. This is the one where he dies. Here's the thing nobody in that story has processed yet. King Piccolo killed Shenron. He did it early, before any of the rest of it, got his wish, then destroyed the dragon so nobody could take it back off him. Which means every Dragon Ball on the planet is a lump of orange rock, and it is going to stay that way until Kami can rebuild what was broken. That takes 4 months. Krillin is dead for 4 months, and Goku is not there for any of it. Nobody knows where he goes. Bulma looks. Roshi doesn't, partly because Roshi is in a bed with burns down one side of his body and his hearing gone, and partly because Roshi has an idea about where a person goes after a night like that, and it isn't a place you can follow someone to. He comes back in the spring. He's thinner. He doesn't explain and nobody pushes. Krillin gets his life back the day the dragon works again, which is a good day, genuinely. Everybody's crying, Roshi's laughing. It's the first uncomplicated thing that has happened in a year. Goku goes to the lookout the next morning. And this is the scene I think the whole series turns on, so I want to do it properly. He asks Kami for training. Kami expects the usual. A kid who wants to be stronger, wants to be ready, wants to make sure it never happens again. And Goku is very specific, and he's very calm about it, which is somehow worse. He doesn't ask to get stronger. He asks whether there's a way to turn it off. That's the word he uses. Off. And Kami, who is the god of this planet, who has been here for centuries, who felt every second of that night from up here and chose not to descend, because he could not think of one thing he could contribute except more mass. Kami tells him the truth. No, there isn't. It's not a technique, and it's not a curse, and it's not something anybody put in him. It's just what he is, all the way down, and there is no version of this where it goes away. And then he watches a 15-year-old take that news standing up. So he offers the next best thing, which is quiet, 3 years of ki suppression. Not as a skill, as a habit, drilled past technique and down into personality until it isn't something he does anymore, it's something he is. Mr. Popo runs him through it every day for 3 years until Goku can walk into a room with a god in it and read below a house cat. And it works. It works beautifully. That's the tragedy of it. This is the single most successful piece of training anybody in Dragon Ball ever completes. But I want to plant 2 things here, because both of them are going to matter enormously. And one of them is going to matter about 8 minutes from now. The first, a lock that good works in both directions. Nobody notices. Why would they? He's not planning on ever opening it. The second, and this one runs for the entire series. Nothing that measures him is ever going to lie. A scouter reads output. When he's at 10,000, it says 10,000. When he's sitting under Kami's suppression, it says 5. And that's correct. It's an accurate reading of a man who is, in that moment, putting out 5. The thing that's actually wrong with him isn't output at all. It's a slope, a rate of change. And nobody has ever built an instrument with a field for that. Every reading in this story is true. They're all just measuring the wrong axis. Hold on to that one. It comes back in about 15 years and it ends the world. 23rd Budokai, Piccolo Jr. shows up with the 3 years of hate, a plan, and a very specific idea about how this is going to go. He spent his entire short life training for one man, and he has thought about this fight every single day. Goku ends it in one exchange. First move of the match. Doesn't gloat. Doesn't monologue. Doesn't look especially happy about it. Just puts him in the ground, because never fight for long, and then steps back and says sorry, and that does more damage than losing ever could have, because Piccolo is left kneeling in a crater in front of a full stadium, having been treated not as an enemy, but as a hazard. Something to be diffused, quickly, carefully, and then apologized to. He came to be somebody's nemesis, and he got handled like a gas leak. He's going to sit in that for 5 years. Then Chi-Chi, and I don't think this is a small thing at all. Chi-Chi is the only person on Earth who has ever looked at Son Goku and seen a husband instead of a weather event. Roshi sees a containment problem. Kami sees a theological one. Krillin loves him and is careful around him in a way he'd never admit out loud. Chi-Chi looks at him and sees a man who'd be good with kids. That's why he marries her. I'm fairly sure that's the entire reason. Gohan's born a year later, named for the old man, obviously. And then Goku does something he doesn't tell anybody about, including his wife. He takes the baby to Bulma and asks her to scan him. She thinks it's a joke at first. She runs it anyway, then runs it again because he asks her to. Perfectly ordinary infant. Bit big for his age. Nothing else. Goku cries with relief for about 10 minutes and won't say why. He doesn't ask her to scan himself. If he had, it would have said normal too. Goku's 25. He's a farmer. He has a wife and a 4-year-old and roughly as much peace as he's ever had in his life. And he's earned it, and it lasts until a pod comes down near East City and a man with hair to his knees starts asking people about somebody called Kakarot. You know the shape of this. Raditz finds Piccolo first, notes that the green man isn't the target, moves on, lands on Kame house, and the first thing he does is check his scouter, 5. He laughs. God, he laughs. 25 years? Half a galaxy. And the runt didn't even manage to kill a planet. He's standing here at 5, with a haircut and a child. And that reading is correct, remember. That's an accurate measurement of a man who has spent 8 years learning to sit at nothing. Everything Raditz says is true. That's what makes it land. He explains the mission, the head injury, the Saiyans, where the boy came from and what he was for, and none of it plays like a lie because none of it is one. Goku hears the whole thing and says no. Not defiantly. He doesn't make a speech. He says no, he's got rice coming in, and he'd like Raditz to leave. Raditz takes Gohan now. Piccolo arrives on that hill and offers the alliance. And this is where I need you to pay attention, because the sequence here is the entire point. Goku is still at 5. He doesn't drop it. He arrives at that wasteland with his son in a pod 50 meters away, and he does not unwind, because 8 years of Kami and Mr. Popo and one very bad night in West City all say the same thing. Don't open it, don't escalate, don't give it a reason. Talk him down, find another way, so. They fight Raditz like men, and Raditz is 1500, and they are not, and it goes exactly how it goes. He takes Piccolo's arm off. I want to be honest about what that means, because the show lets you off the hook here, and I don't think we should be. Piccolo loses that arm because Goku is standing 8 meters away, choosing to stay suppressed. That's the price. Not a mistake, not bad luck, a decision Goku made for reasons that are completely sound, and Piccolo pays for it, and Piccolo should get to say so out loud. Then Raditz gets the boy out of the pod and holds him up by the collar as a shield, and that works too, and it works for the same reason. Everything Raditz achieves on that hill, he achieves because Goku is holding the door shut, and then Goku starts unwinding. And here's the thing I don't think anybody expects. It's slow. That's the payoff for everything Kami built. Suppression that deep isn't a switch you flip, it's a personality you've been wearing for 8 years, and coming out of it is not fast and it is not clean. It takes seconds. Real ones. Visible, labored, awful seconds where a man stands in a crater with his fists at his sides, making a sound like something under pressure, and the ground around his feet starts to lift. Raditz watches his scouter, 900, 4,000, 22,000, and he takes a step back, because 22,000 is Frieza's officer corps. 22,000 is people Raditz has spent his whole career being afraid of 40,000. And the lens cracks, because that's what those units do. Push a reading up faster than the hardware can track it, and it doesn't give you a bigger number. It gives you a cracked lens and a dead earpiece. And every Saiyan who's ever worn one knows that. So Raditz never finds out where it stopped, that's all he gets. Not a final figure. Just the knowledge that his equipment broke first, and the man kept going, which is a fundamentally different kind of fear than losing to somebody strong. Losing to somebody strong is a thing a Saiyan can do with his dignity intact. This isn't that. And 2 systems away, Vegeta and Nappa are listening to an open channel, and they get exactly the same thing he does. They've already heard about the spheres. Piccolo mentioned them earlier, when this was still a conversation about whether Raditz could be killed and whether it would stick. So Vegeta has wish-granting spheres that bring back the dead, and then a voice going thin, and then a number that climbs and truncates, and then 6 seconds of nothing. He doesn't get a ceiling. Nobody gives him a ceiling. That's precisely why he's going to come here for immortality instead of a fight. Raditz is holding a 4-year-old boy by the collar and watching something come apart in front of him that his instruments have refused to measure, and he is not a brave man. So he does what cornered men do. He points his hand at the child in his own grip and fires, point blank, and Goku is somewhere in the 40s and still climbing, and he is not fast enough yet, not because of distance. Distance was never the problem. He's 12 meters away, and at 80,000, that's nothing. That's less than nothing. The problem is that he is 3 seconds into a 30-second job. He is still coming up out of 8 years, and the blast is already moving. And there is no amount of wanting that closes that gap, so he stops unwinding, and he starts tearing, and that's how it opens. I think this is the part people get wrong about this what if. Every time. He doesn't roar. He doesn't lose his mind with rage. He isn't avenging anything, and he doesn't choose it in any sense that means anything, because there's no time in there to choose anything. He reaches for more speed, and he goes straight through the ceiling. The dark hair, the red in the eyes, the lift. You barely see it, it's a frame. Then green, and nothing behind the eyes. He gets there. The boy is thrown 20 meters by the edge of it and lands in the dirt, and Gohan is unconscious before the green ever finishes arriving, which is the only mercy anybody gets on that hill all day. He wakes up an hour later in Piccolo's arm with a missing father and a missing 90 seconds. He never sees any of it. That matters more than it looks like it matters right now. Raditz lasts about 8 seconds. There's nothing to describe. There's a scorch pattern in the dirt roughly in the shape of a man and a strip of armor 40 meters down the slope, still smoking. And that's the last of Bardock's older son. And Piccolo is on his knees with one arm, looking up at something he cannot measure. And he's realizing the fight is over. And it isn't stopping. Nothing's pushing back now. That's the whole thing. That's the rule. And this is the moment the series builds its entire spine out of. The climb needs something to climb against. And there is exactly one object left, standing on that hill, dense enough to qualify. It turns inward and it starts eating him. He feels it start. That's the horror of it. He's in there, somewhere underneath. And he can feel the thing that's supposed to be his own strength turn around and go looking for something to fight and settle on him. And he works out in whatever's left of him that still works things out, that he has maybe 15 seconds, and that there is exactly one variable he still controls. Not weather, not how much where. So he goes up straight up out of the atmosphere as far as one man can get in 15 seconds, and he lets it out somewhere there's nothing to hurt. Piccolo watches him leave and doesn't understand what he's watching until the sky lights up. Nothing comes back down, no body. Not a burned one, not a broken one, nothing to bury, nothing to find, nothing that says a person was ever up there. Chi-Chi gets an empty sky and a story about a Saiyan. Gohan gets an empty sky and a story about a Saiyan, which is exactly, precisely, to the letter, what Goku got at 4.5 years old standing in a valley made of glass, and I don't think he'd have appreciated the symmetry. And Piccolo walks off that hill with a 4-year-old think about what he's carrying. He came to kill this man. He lost an arm doing nothing. His beam missed, his plan failed, and the person he came for died without any assistance from him whatsoever. He contributed nothing to that fight, except a limb, and he is the only living witness. He is the only being in the universe who knows what actually killed Son Goku, and Gohan is going to spend the next 5 years believing a Saiyan did it, and Piccolo is going to stand there and let him. I'm not going to tell you why yet. He's got reasons, and they're better than they sound. But that silence sits between those two for 5 years, and when it finally breaks, it's going to break in the worst possible place. And roughly a decade after that, it turns out to be the only thing standing between this planet and something built out of the blood he left in that dirt. That's part 2. Goku's dead, killed by his own power, which is the second time that power has killed somebody he was trying to protect, and the first time anybody's around to notice. Piccolo's raising a child. Vegeta and Nappa are on their way, and Vegeta isn't coming for revenge. Vegeta doesn't care about Raditz, and never did. He's coming for the spheres because he heard a number climb and cut out, and he has decided he needs to be immortal before he stands anywhere near whatever made it. And Goku is on Snake Way, which is the interesting bit actually, because Canon Goku goes to King Kai and comes back with a multiplier and a bomb made of other people's energy, and both of those are power-ups, and this Goku does not need a single power-up in the universe. So what does King Kai have that's worth anything to a man like this? Turns out, 2 things. And they're the 2 most important techniques in this entire series, and neither one of them is going to do what you think it does. Also, King Kai is the first person in the universe who's going to look at him and actually know what he's looking at. Kami didn't know. Roshi didn't know. Grandpa Gohan died not knowing. Somebody's finally going to say the words out loud. Part 3. See you there. Quick recap, Goku died on that hill. Not to Raditz. Raditz lasted 8 seconds. He died because he opened the door to cross 12 meters and save his son, and once Raditz was gone, there was nothing left on that hill to push against, so the thing turned around and came for him. He took it up out of the atmosphere and let it go where there was nothing to hurt. Nothing came back down. Chi-Chi and Gohan got an empty sky and a story about a Saiyan, and Piccolo, the only living witness, decided not to correct it. 2 systems out, Vegeta and Nappa heard a scouter reading climb and cut off mid-number, and heard about spheres that bring back the dead and made a plan. And Goku is on Snake Way, which is where this gets interesting. Because think about what King Kai actually gives Goku in the real story. A multiplier and a bomb made out of other people's energy. 2 power-ups, and this Goku does not need a power-up. He has never needed a power-up in his life. He's a man carrying an engine with no top on it who has spent 25 years learning to keep it in a box. So what could King Kai possibly have that's worth anything to him? Turns out, 2 things. And they're the most important techniques in this entire series, and neither one does what you think it does. Snake Way's fine. It takes months. It's boring. We've all seen it. Moving on. What matters is what happens in the first 10 minutes on that little planet before a single push-up gets done, because King Kai looks at him. Not measures him, looks at him. And King Kai is the North Kai. He's not a martial arts instructor who happens to live in the afterlife. He's an administrator with access to the records of a quarter of the universe going back further than anybody on Earth can count. He's read about things nobody alive has seen, and he stands there in front of a cheerful dead farmer in an orange gi and goes very, very quiet. Then he says it out loud, legendary Super Saiyan. And that's the first time in 25 years that anybody has put a name to it. Grandpa Gohan died not knowing. Roshi spent 8 years standing in a valley made of glass with no explanation, and then 8 more years training the explanation without ever saying it. Kami didn't know. Kami's a god, and he didn't know. He just knew it was bad. Chi-Chi doesn't know. Bulma scanned it twice and got normal, 25 years, and finally somebody says the words, and the words come with a story. Once every 1,000 years or so, give or take. Not a technique, not a bloodline you can trace, just something that shows up in a Saiyan every so often the way a fault shows up in a mountain. And Goku asks the same question he asked Kami 8 years earlier. He's very calm about it, the way he was then. Is there a way to turn it off? And King Kai gives him a different answer. No. But there might be a way to steer. Here's the year, and I love this arc because everything about it is the opposite of what you've seen. The gravity doesn't do much. That's the first surprise, and it's a deliberate one. King Kai puts him under 10 times Earth's gravity, and Goku gets a bit better at it, and his actual power barely moves at all, a few thousand across the whole year, which is nothing. And King Kai works out why fairly fast, and it's the thesis of the entire series. This man's strength was never his problem. You don't fix a man with no ceiling by raising his floor. There's no version of get stronger that helps here. He came in at 80,000 and he'll leave at 95, and the difference is rounding. So King Kai stops trying to make him bigger and starts trying to give him controls, Kaioken first. And forget everything you know about what it's for. Strip it down to mechanism, and Kaioken is one thing: deliberate, incremental, dialable escalation. Times 2, times 3, hold it, bring it back down, on command, by choice, in increments you pick. That is precisely, exactly, to the letter, the one thing Goku has never been able to do in his entire life. He has a suppressed state, and he has a detonation, and there has never been a single thing in between. No middle, no dial, just a lock and a door. Kaioken is the first dial anybody has ever handed him, and it's also a key, and King Kai knows it, and teaches it anyway, because think about what feeds the climb. Escalation, resistance, push. And a Kaioken is deliberate escalation. It's the exact input the engine responds to, applied on purpose, by hand. Times 2 is fine. Times 2 is comfortable. He can sit there all day. Times 3, and he can feel something on the other side of the door lean against it. King Kai never gets him past 3 in training and won't let him try. He says it plainly. This is a dial and a detonator in the same housing, and the numbers on it stop meaning what they say somewhere around 4. Use it low, use it short. Come back down. That is, for the record, terrible safety advice to give somebody, and it's also the best available option, and both of those things are true at once. Then the Spirit Bomb, and I want to slow down here, because this is the emotional center of the entire first half of the series, and it's very easy to blow past it. Every single thing this man has ever done with his own hands has hurt somebody. Not metaphorically, concretely. His power killed his grandfather. His power took a city off the map and put Roshi through 3 walls. His power killed him and orphaned his son and left his wife looking at an empty sky. 25 years, and every scrap of strength he's ever generated has cost somebody something. And then a small blue man on a small round planet teaches him an attack that is not his. That's the whole thing. You put your hands up and you ask, and the grass gives you a little, and the trees give you a little, and people who don't know you're alive give you a little, and you hold it, carefully, gently, because it isn't yours, and it only works at all if your heart is clean. King Kai teaches it as a technique. Goku doesn't take it as one. Goku takes it as the first weapon he has ever been allowed to hold that isn't made out of the thing that killed his grandfather. He's better at it than anybody King Kai has ever taught. Obviously he is. A year on Earth. And it's the year everybody knows. Piccolo drags Gohan into the wilderness and starts making a fighter out of him. And there is something genuinely strange about that, which the story never quite says out loud, so I will. Piccolo is the only being alive who knows what killed Son Goku. He watched it happen from 12 meters away with one arm. And what he does with that information is take the man's 4-year-old son out into the desert and spend a year teaching him control, teaching him to be precise, to hold back, to not swing wild. He'd tell you it's practical. It isn't. Piccolo is doing the one thing he can think of to make absolutely certain this boy does not turn into his father, and he never tells him why. Krillin, Yamcha, Tien, and Shiatsu train under Kami. Everybody's ready. Nobody's ready. I'm going to keep this tight because you've seen it, and because the point of it isn't the fighting. The point of it is that Goku isn't there. That's the whole arc, really. Earth's monster is dead. Dead by his own hand, on a hill, because there was nothing left to fight. And the planet spends the worst day of its history discovering exactly what it's like to not have him, Yamcha and the Saibamen. Chiaotzu on like Nappa's back, Tien with one arm, walking forward anyway, and Piccolo in front of Gohan. Piccolo takes that blast for a 5-year-old and dies in the dirt, and he says the thing he says. And it lands like it always lands. It also does something else. He takes the secret with him. The only witness to what happened on that hill is now dead. And Gohan is going to keep believing a Saiyan killed his father, and there's nobody left to say otherwise. For a while. And because Piccolo dies, Kami dies. And because Kami dies, the Dragon Balls turn to stone with a body count of 5 sitting on the table. Which is why anybody ends up on Namek. Same as always. Some machinery you don't touch, then Goku shows up. Revived, back up, Snake Way. 1 year of the strangest training anybody's ever completed. And I'm not going to sell you a fight here because there isn't one, and pretending otherwise would be an insult to everybody watching, Nappa is 4,000. Goku is 95,000. It's over in under a minute and it is not satisfying. It's clinical. It's a man doing a job he has done his entire life, which is ending things on the first exchange, and doing it well and feeling nothing much about it. Krillin and Gohan are standing there and Krillin's crying and Gohan is looking at his father with an expression Goku doesn't like, and it's over. Vegeta doesn't even flinch when Nappa dies. He just gets more interested, and Vegeta is 18,000. Let's be adults about it. 18,000 against 95 is not a fight either. The Prince of all Saiyans, the man who came here for immortality because a scouter reading frightened him, gets comprehensively handled in his own base form by a farmer, and the audience should be allowed to see it plainly rather than watch me pretend otherwise for 10 minutes. He knows it inside 20 seconds. That's the important part. Vegeta figures out that he is outclassed by a factor he can't close, and then he does what Vegeta always does, which is get creative. He fires the ball into the sky. Great Ape Vegeta is 180,000. And that's the first thing in this entire story that is genuinely, straightforwardly above Son Goku. Now, the obvious answer is Kaioken. He's got a dial. Times 2 takes him to 190, times 3 to 285, and it's done. And Goku doesn't reach for it, because he can feel exactly what that dial is connected to. King Kai told him. He's felt something lean on the door at times 3 on a quiet planet with nobody around, and he is now standing on a battlefield with his son 40 meters away, and a dead friend in the dirt, and a monster the size of a building coming toward him. So he tries the other thing first. He puts his hands up. And that's the moment I think this whole series has been building to without saying so. He's got a way to win that isn't his. That's the entire point of it. He's spent his life being a danger to everybody in a 100-kilometer radius. And here is a solution made out of borrowed energy that will cost nobody anything at all. And he goes for it, and I want you to notice how badly he wants it to work. Krillin sees what he's doing and gets Gohan back. The sky starts to change, and Great Ape Vegeta does not wait. Because gathering takes time. It always takes time. That's the whole shape of the technique. You ask, and things answer, and it isn't fast. And the thing coming at him is 30 meters of aggression with no patience in it whatsoever, and absolutely no interest in what's happening above him. He has to drop it, half-formed. 10 seconds short. The light goes out over the battlefield, and the borrowed energy goes back where it came from, and Son Goku is standing in a crater with empty hands. The clean way existed. There just wasn't time for it. That's not a failed technique. That's his entire life in one shot, and if you take nothing else from this part, take that. So he uses the dial times 2. It holds. It's fine. He's not winning, but he's not dying, times 3. And it's close now, close enough that the ape is bleeding, close enough that this could actually go somewhere, and also close enough that he can feel it. That pressure on the other side. Something on the far side of the door putting its weight against it, while he stands there, deliberately raising his own power in increments, feeding the exact input the thing was built to answer. He should stop. King Kai told him to stop. The ape has his son in its field of view, times 4. And the door doesn't get opened, it comes open from the other side. That's the important distinction, and it's the second time in 3 parts. He didn't choose it on that hill either. He reached for speed and overshot. Here he reaches for one more increment, and the increment goes through the wall, the dark hair, the red. The frame and a half of gold that nobody watching is fast enough to register. Then green, Great Ape Vegeta is 180,000, and he lasts about as long as you'd expect. There's a point maybe 15 seconds in where the thing on the ground stops being a monster and starts being a very frightened man in a giant body, and then the tail goes, and the body goes with it, and Vegeta is lying in a crater with a broken everything, human-sized, coughing blood into the dust, 8 seconds from dead. Maybe less, and here's where it happens. Goku shuts it, standing over him, with the job unfinished, and the man who killed Yamcha and Chiaotzu and Tien lying at his feet, and the whole thing right there. He shuts it, and I want to be precise about when, because it matters. He doesn't do it while the ape is up. That would be suicide, and you'd all clock it instantly. He does it after. The ape's down, the immediate threat is gone, and now there's a broken man on the ground, and Goku can feel the next rung coming underneath him because it's still going. That's the thing. It doesn't care that the fight's over. It never has. It's already looking for the next thing to push against, and it is about 90 seconds from settling on the only candidate left, exactly like it did on the hill, so he lets go. He steps back, and he stands there in the dirt breathing while the Prince of all Saiyans drags himself across the ground toward his pod, and he does not stop him. It is not mercy. It has nothing to do with Saiyan curiosity or wanting a rematch or any of the reasons you know. It's arithmetic. Another 30 seconds in that state is worse than whatever Vegeta does with the rest of his life. That's the sum. He does it in about a second and a half, and he's right. And it is the first time in this entire story that restraint is a decision made under pressure rather than a rule somebody taught him when he was 11. Krillin picks up Yajirobe's sword. He's standing over Vegeta, and he has every reason in the world. And everyone he's ever loved is dead in a field behind him, and he looks at Goku. And Goku says no. He doesn't explain. He can't. There's no version of I need him gone from here before I do something worse than he did that comes out right. And Goku has never in his life been good with words. So it just sounds like weakness. The pod goes up. And Krillin is standing there with a sword he didn't get to use, and Gohan is looking at his father, and Goku is the only person on that battlefield who knows why, and he doesn't say it. Everybody hates him for it. Not forever. But that day, standing in that field, with 4 bodies and no Dragon Balls and the man responsible in the sky, every single person there thinks Son Goku did something unforgivable, and he lets them. That's part 3. Goku has brakes now, which is new. He has a dial that doubles as a detonator, and a weapon that doesn't belong to him, and a name for what he is, which he'd been going without for 25 years. He also has a body count he didn't cause, and a friend in the ground who died holding the only secret that mattered. And a son who watched him let a murderer fly away. Next time, Namek. And I'll be straight with you about part 4, because I think it's the best one in this series, and I don't want to undersell it. Goku wins. He goes up against Frieza, and he climbs, and he genuinely, completely, decisively wins. The strongest being in the universe. Finished. No ambiguity, no last-second escape. And it is the worst thing that has ever happened to him, because he tries the clean way first. He tries the way that doesn't cost anybody anything, the way King Kai gave him, and he throws it with everything he has in front of everyone he loves. And it isn't enough. And everything that happens to that planet afterwards happens because of that. Part 4. See you there. Quick recap, Goku came back from King Kai with a dial that doubles as a detonator and a weapon that isn't his. He handled Nappa in under a minute, handled Vegeta in his base form, and then Great Ape Vegeta at 180,000 became the first thing in this entire story that was genuinely above him. He tried the Spirit Bomb. He wanted it to work. It takes time to gather, and the ape didn't wait, and he had to drop it 10 seconds short. So he used the dial instead, and at times 4 the door came open from the other side, and Great Ape Vegeta stopped existing shortly afterwards. And then Goku shut it, standing over a broken man, with the job unfinished, because he could feel the next rung coming, and he did the arithmetic. Krillin picked up a sword. Goku said no, and couldn't explain why. Everybody in that field thought he did something unforgivable, and he let them. Piccolo's dead. Kami's dead. The Dragon Balls are stone, so they go to Namek, and I'll say up front what I said at the end of last time, because I don't want you thinking this is the triumph episode. Goku wins this one, completely. No ambiguity, no last-second escape, no cyborg version showing up in 6 months. It's the worst thing that ever happens to him. 6 days in Bulma's ship, and Goku doesn't touch the gravity machine. That's not laziness, that's the whole point. He already knows raising his floor does nothing for him. So he spends 6 days doing the only training that's ever going to matter. Kaioken, low, over and over. ×2, hold it, come down. ×2, hold, come down. Learning where the edges are. Learning what 3 feels like before it gets loud and gathering. Hands up in an empty room, asking a spaceship and the vacuum around it for whatever they've got, which isn't much, and holding it anyway. Meanwhile, Nemek's already a war. Vegeta gets there first, and Vegeta is doing what Vegeta does. He's climbing. Zarbon nearly kills him, and he comes back stronger, and then he takes Zarbon apart. Dodoria, elite squads. He gets beaten half to death and heals and gets stronger and does it again, and by the time Goku lands, the Prince of All Saiyans is a different animal than the one who crawled into a pod on Earth. And somewhere in there, he does the arithmetic that breaks him. I think this is the best character beat in the series, and it's completely silent. It happens in Vegeta's head while he's floating in a healing tank at the ceiling because he's been operating on one assumption his entire life. Get stronger, close the gap, win. That's Vegeta. That's the engine of the whole character. And on Namek, with a body full of new power and a scouter reading he'd have killed for a month ago, he works out that the gap isn't a gap. The thing he saw on Earth doesn't have a number. It has a response. It rises to meet whatever's put in front of it. which means every hour he spends training, every Zenkai, every near-death, every point of power he claws out of this planet, makes the thing he's chasing bigger at the exact moment they finally meet. He is pulling on a rope attached to the wall behind him. There is no amount of stronger. There has never been an amount of stronger. The only variable he controls is how hard he makes it climb, so he wants the wish. Immortality, right now, because immortality is the only move left on the board that isn't arithmetic he can't win. He doesn't get it, obviously. Ginyu Force, compressed, because you know it, and there's a better scene waiting. Guldo's nothing. Rakum and Berter and Jace are 40,000 each, and Goku's 95, so they go the way you'd expect. Quick, unsatisfying, professional. Ginyu's 120,000, and that's above him, so Goku has to use the dial. ×2, ×3, briefly, and he brings it down fast, and you can see him not liking it. And then Ginyu does the thing Ginyu does. He takes the body, and for about 11 seconds, Captain Ginyu of the Frieza Force is inside a legendary Super Saiyan. And it is the single funniest and most horrifying thing in this entire arc, because he expects power. He's just traded up, that's his whole gimmick. He's holding the strongest chassis he's ever laid hands on. What he actually gets is a body that has spent 8 years being trained to be nothing, sitting at a resting somewhere in the single digits, and he has no idea how to unwind it, because unwinding it isn't a technique. It's a habit belonging to a man who isn't in there anymore, so he strains. And the body doesn't give him strength, it gives him something else. It starts to climb, because the engine doesn't answer to skill or intent, it answers to distress, and Captain Ginyu is by that point deeply, genuinely distressed as he feels the numbers start to move underneath him with nothing driving it, no way to stop it, a rate of increase with no top on it, and no relationship to anything he's doing. He gives the body back. I want to be clear, he gives it back. He initiates the swap himself, in a panic, and Goku doesn't even fight him for it. The strongest thing Captain Ginyu ever held, he handed over voluntarily inside 11 seconds because he could not stand being in there. He ends up a frog anyway. Some things are fixed points. The Namekian Dragon Balls come good, and Piccolo gets pulled back, and he ends up on Namek, and he finds Nail, and the two of them stop being two. And there's a stretch, maybe 20 minutes of story time, before any of the serious fighting starts, where it's just Piccolo and Gohan standing on a rock watching the sky, waiting for the worst thing in the universe to come find them. Piccolo is fairly sure they're both about to die, so he tells him everything. What actually happened on that hill? That Raditz didn't kill his father, that Raditz lasted 8 seconds, that Son Goku killed himself going up out of the atmosphere because there was nothing left on the ground to hold it, and he'd worked out he had 15 seconds to choose where. And then the second half, which is harder, because Piccolo has to say it about himself, that he watched all of it from 12 meters away and then walked off that hill carrying a 4-year-old and said nothing. For 5 years. He let a boy build a whole understanding of his own father out of a thing that wasn't true, and he had reasons, and the reasons were mostly that the truth is worse. Gohan doesn't shout at him. That's what makes the scene. Gohan is 11 now, and Piccolo raised him, and he just stands there for a long time and then asks one question, which is whether his dad was scared. And Piccolo tells him the truth, which is that he doesn't know. He couldn't see his face. I'm not going to walk you through all of it. You know it. Frieza works up the ladder, and it goes badly at every rung, and Dende, and Krillin's spine, and Gohan going off like a bomb and getting put back down. Vegeta dies, and he dies having already told Goku the thing he worked out in the tank, which he does not phrase kindly, because he's Vegeta. He phrases it as an accusation. You don't get stronger, you cheat. There's nothing to beat. There's just a thing that goes up. And then, quieter, the actual content. Kill him fast, because every second you spend in front of him is a second you hand him. He's completely right, and he's talking about the wrong person. Then Frieza puts a hole in him, and Goku is standing over another body he didn't manage to reach in time, which by this point in his life is a shape he recognizes. Final form Frieza is 120 million. And Goku's 95,000. I want that number to sit there for a second, because people breeze past it. Kaioken times 4, the number King Kai told him never to touch, puts him at 380,000. That is not close. That is not the same sport. Base Goku against final form Frieza is a rounding error, and every single person watching that fight, including Goku, knows exactly what that means. There is no version of this where he wins without opening the door. He knows it on the way in. That's the horror of the next 10 minutes. He is not a man discovering he's outmatched. He's a man who did the sum before he got there and came anyway, hoping for what? He puts his hands up. Everything about this shot should feel like the last part's beat repeating and going right this time. He's got room. He's got Piccolo holding Frieza off. Nobody's charging him, nobody's rushing it, and this time there's a whole planet under him and a sky full of stars, and he can ask all of it. And Namek gives. God, Namek gives. A dying world hands over everything it's got to a man it met yesterday. And the Namekians in the distance feel it happening and understand what's being asked, and they don't hold anything back either. It takes a long time. That's the point. It always takes a long time, and this is the first time in his life he's been allowed the time. And what he's holding at the end of it is the largest thing anybody in this story has ever made, and none of it is his, and that's why he's crying while he holds it. He throws it. It's magnificent. It genuinely is. It's the most beautiful thing in this series, and I don't want to shortchange it. The light goes across that whole planet, the water goes up, Krillin screaming, Gohan screaming, the Namekians are on their knees. And Frieza gets up beaten. Hurt worse than he's been hurt in centuries, burned, bleeding, one arm not working right, but up 120 million. It was always going to be 120 million. The Spirit Bomb was never a magic number. It was a very large amount of energy assembled by a man who is not strong enough. And against something like Frieza, a very large amount of energy is not enough. And this is the moment I've been building toward for 4 parts, so let me say it plainly. The clean way was tried. In full, in front of everyone, with everything he had and everything a planet had, and it lost. That's the tragedy. Not that he never got to try it, he got to try it. He got the time, he got the room, he got the whole world's help, and it wasn't enough, and there is nothing left to reach for except the thing in his chest. Frieza knows he's won. He starts walking, and on the way past, almost absently, because it costs him nothing, and he's annoyed, he kills Krillin. The first time this ever happened, the very first time, on a rooftop in West City when Goku was 15 years old, and Roshi's cage was still holding, it was Krillin, same friend, same trigger. 15 years apart, and Roshi built that cage for anger, and it survived being insulted and beaten and humiliated in front of thousands of people, and it has never once held against grief. Not on that rooftop, not on that hill. Not here, the door doesn't come open, it comes off. Now watch the climb, because everything this series has been explaining is about to happen in one continuous shot, and it's the payoff for all 4 parts. He opens somewhere around 1 million, which is nothing, which is less than 1% of what's standing in front of him, and Frieza actually laughs. And then he stops laughing, because it doesn't stay there. Because resistance feeds the climb, and Frieza is 120 million points of resistance, the largest quantity of pushback that has ever existed in one place in the history of this universe. And the thing on the other side of that door has spent 25 years on a planet with nothing worth climbing for. It has never been fed. Not once. Not properly. 2 million. 9. 40. Frieza hits him and it makes it worse. That's the part he can't process. Every exchange is fuel, every impact is an input. The harder he fights, the faster the number moves. And there is no strategy available to a being whose entire existence is built on being the biggest number in the room. 120 million matched and past it, and then it stops being a number anybody's tracking. Frieza dies on Namek. Properly. No half-body in a crater, no King Cold, no scrap floating in space waiting for a machine to find it. The strongest being in the universe is simply gone, and it took about 90 seconds, and it was never in doubt from the moment Krillin hit the water, Goku won. And now there's nothing left to fight. You've known this was coming since part 2. I've told you the rule 3 times. Something absorbs it, or he does. On that hill, there was nothing. Empty sky, 12 meters up, no opponent, no planet close enough. So it turned inward and found the only dense thing in range and ate him alive. And he went up and let it go and never came back down. Here there's a world, Namek takes it. That's it. That's the mechanism, and it's not poetry. It's the same rule running the same way with a different object in range. The climb comes off Frieza with nowhere to go, turns looking for something to push against, and finds 500 billion tons of rock and water, and it goes into that instead of into him. The planet dies in his place, and he understands it while it's happening. That's what makes it unbearable. He's not a survivor, and he doesn't get to think of himself as one. He's a man who got substituted for, by a world, without asking, and he can feel it happening under his feet. The crust opens. The sea goes up. Namek starts coming apart from the inside like something with a fever. Purunga's already done his work. Dende got the wishes off before the end, and everybody who died is alive again, and everybody who's alive is on Earth. That part's clean. Nobody dies here who didn't already. But the Namekians standing in Bulma's back garden that afternoon watched their home go on somebody's telescope feed, and they are the only species in this story who ever find out the truth about what happened to it, and they are extremely gracious about it. And that's somehow worse than if they'd been angry. Goku's still down there, alone, standing on a shelf of rock in an orange sky that's coming apart, in the middle of the largest thing he's ever done and the largest thing he's ever destroyed. And the two of them are the same thing, and there is no version of the story where you can separate them. He killed the worst being in the universe. He killed a planet doing it. Those are one sentence. Frieza's ship is where Frieza left it, and it's small, and it's stupidly overbuilt, and it survives things that planets don't, because tyrants build good ships. He gets to it. He gets off. It's damaged. It was damaged before he got in it. It gets him out of the system, and then it stops pretending. And the last thing that happens in this part is a dead man's escape pod coming down hard through the atmosphere of a world nobody on Earth has ever heard of. Small planet. Purple sky. Population that's never fought anybody. That's part 4. Frieza is gone, permanently, which quietly means a great many things you'll notice missing later. Vegeta's alive on Earth and no longer chasing a number, because he worked out on Namek that the number pulls away when you pull on it, and a Vegeta who stopped chasing is a Vegeta who has to find something else to be. He does. It takes him years, and it's not what you'd guess. Gohan knows how his father died. Piccolo told him standing on a rock waiting to die, and neither of them has mentioned it since. And Goku's on Yardrat, which sounds like a footnote. It isn't. In the real story, Yardrat is a line of dialogue and a teleport trick, and in this one, it's the most important place he ever goes. Because Yardrat is full of people who do enormous things with almost no energy, and that is the exact opposite of everything he is. And they are the first teachers he's ever met who are not remotely impressed by him. He learns instant transmission there. Sure, he also finally learns to stop on the step. The ordinary one. The gold one, the one he's been falling straight through in a fifth of a second since he was 15 years old, and has never once managed to stand still on, which is going to matter more than anything else in this series, because while he's gone, on Earth, an old man in a basement is holding a genetic sample he pulled out of the dirt on a hill 5 years ago. He has no idea what he's got. He's about to build it a body. Part 5. See you there. Last one. Let's go. Quick recap, and then I'm not stopping. Frieza's dead, permanently, on Namek. No half-body, and nobody coming to Earth to collect the pieces. Goku beat him by opening the door, and then the climb came off him with nowhere to go. And a planet took the hit that should have taken Goku. He watched it happen and understood exactly what was happening while it happened. Vegeta's alive on Earth and no longer chasing anything, because he worked out in a healing tank that the gap widens when you pull on it. Gohan knows how his father actually died. Piccolo told him on a rock, waiting to die, and neither of them has said a word about it since. And Goku's on a small purple planet nobody's heard of, sitting in a crashed ship. Here's what Yardrat is in the real story. A line of dialogue and a teleport trick. Here it's the most important place he ever goes, because the Yardrats are not strong. That's the entire thing about them. They're not warriors. They've never conquered anybody. And if you put a scouter on the best of them, you'd get a number that would embarrass a Saibaman. And they do things nobody on Earth can do. They move between stars on a handful of ki. They do work with energy so small, it barely registers. And they get results out of it that Kami couldn't manage with everything he had. The entire civilization is built on the principle that the amount is not the point. It never was. Placement is the point. Precision is the point. Where you put it and when you stop, which is the exact opposite of every single thing Son Goku is. And they are not impressed by him. That's the part that changes him. He spent his whole life being either feared or handled or apologized to, and these people look at a legendary Super Saiyan and they're mildly interested at best, because from where they're standing, he's a man with an enormous amount of something and no idea what to do with it. They're the first teachers he's ever had who aren't afraid. Instant transmission comes out of that, and it's not a strength technique at all. It's a placement technique. You find a signature and you put yourself where it is. The amount of energy involved is almost nothing. But it's the other thing that matters. Because somewhere in the second year, in the middle of an exercise that has nothing to do with transformation, Goku is asked to hold a very small output at a very exact level for a very long time. And he does. And then he does it a bit higher, and a bit higher. And they keep asking, week after week, and it stops being about output at all, and starts being about the thing he has never in his life been able to do. which is stop, where he decides to stop. He's been passing through the ordinary Super Saiyan transformation since he was 15 years old. Every single time. It's not a form he lacks. It's a stair he's been falling straight down for a decade and a half. A fifth of a second of gold on the way to green, gone before anybody's eye can register it. On Yardrat, at 30, in a field, with an instructor who is politely unbothered. He stands on the step, blonde hair. Green eyes. Sitting perfectly still. And it is dialable. And it is boring. And he can hold it for hours. And he can put it down whenever he likes. He asked Kami for off when he was 15, and Kami told him the truth, which was no, this isn't off. It's the next best thing anybody's ever managed, and it took 15 years and 2 dead planets to get here. He comes home to a boy who came back in time. Trunks doesn't have a Frieza to kill in this timeline. That particular fixture is missing, so he does the only other thing he came to do, which is find them and tell them. Androids, 3 years, this date, this island, everybody dies. Here's medicine for a heart thing that would otherwise have killed you. And he tells Goku a second thing, privately, which he wasn't planning to. In his timeline, they lost. Everyone. And what he actually remembers about Son Goku isn't a fight, because there wasn't one. He remembers a story his mother told about a man who went up out of the atmosphere once to keep an explosion away from a village. Trunks came back, partly to warn them and partly to see whether that story was true. 3 years, and I'll be quick about them, Goku trains. And for the first time in his life, it's not containment, it's range. Base, gold, hold, down, up, hold, over and over, until the ladder has rungs on it instead of a lock and a detonation. Vegeta trains too, and he goes Super Saiyan. And it's earned, and it's enormous, and it's the proudest day of his life. And here's the thing about that. Vegeta's Super Saiyan genuinely matches Goku's, not the curse. Nobody matches the curse. Nobody's ever going to match the curse. But the gold form, the controlled one, the one Goku had to go to another galaxy to learn how to stand still in, Vegeta gets there on his own, in a gravity room, by being furious for 3 years. And in a straight fight between Goku holding the step and Vegeta at full burn, it's a fight. A real one that matters enormously in about 40 minutes. And somewhere in those 3 years, Vegeta stops training to beat him. He never announces it. He'd rather die. But the goal quietly changes from surpass Son Goku to be the one who's standing there when Son Goku loses control, and he'd tell you it's because he's the only competent man on the planet, and he'd be lying, and everybody would let him now. 5 years before any of this, on a hill in the wastelands, a small machine sat in a rock formation and filmed a fight. It got a Scouter equivalent reading that climbed and terminated at 40,000. It got 90 seconds of footage its sensors could not parse. And then the vent went off and it was caught in the edge of it, and it came home crippled. 3/4 melted, 1 wing, and a sample chamber. And in that chamber, from that one site, it had Goku's blood from the dirt where Raditz put him, Raditz's tissue from 40 meters downslope, and Piccolo's arm. The whole thing. Left on that hill and never collected, because Piccolo grew a new one and nobody thinks about the old one. 1 location, 1 ruined drone. 3 donors. Giro drew the obvious conclusion, and it was a reasonable one. He had the definitive Saiyan baseline and Saiyan battlefields destroy equipment. So he never sent another drone, not to Nappa, not to Vegeta, not to the Great Ape. He sat in a basement for years, building around a sample he was completely certain was complete. He was right that he had everything. He was wrong about what everything was, because Giro's screening is genetic. And genetics tells you about tissue. It does not tell you about a slope. There is no assay in the world for rate of change. He looked at that sample with the best equipment on the planet, and it came back healthy Saiyan cells. And the reading was accurate, the way every reading in this entire story has been accurate. Cell exists because Giro stopped looking, Saiyan and Nameskian, and nothing else. Regeneration from Piccolo, growth from the Saiyans, and underneath it, an engine with no top on it, which the man who built the body around it went to his grave never suspecting was in there, 19 and 20 on the island. And it's short. Goku doesn't have a heart virus and doesn't need Vegeta to save him, and gold is a thing he can hold now, and 19's absorption trick is worthless against a man who understands placement better than anybody on the planet. 17 and 18 come out anyway, because that was always going to happen, and they are genuinely dangerous. Not to Goku, but to everyone else. And there's a stretch of this arc where the real problem is that Goku can only be in one place, and instant transmission makes that better, but it doesn't make it fixed. Then Cell turns up and starts eating people, and the arc turns into a foot race, and he wins it, because he was always going to win it, 17. Then 18 perfect. Here's the beat I've been waiting 5 parts for. Shell doesn't know either. That's what makes him work. He is not walking around with a secret weapon. He thinks he's simply the finished article. Giro told him he was perfect, and every fight he's had since has confirmed it. And perfect is a fixed thing, a completed thing, a top. So the first time somebody actually pushes back on him properly, Vegeta, at full burn, hitting him harder than anything has ever hit him. Cell feels something happen in his chest that isn't in his documentation. He gets stronger mid-fight. While being hit, not from a healing cycle, not from absorbing anything, just up, smoothly, in response to being resisted, and he laughs. I want that laugh to land because it's the most frightening sound in this entire series. Everything before it, Raditz, Nappa, Frieza, was a creature discovering it was outmatched. This is a creature discovering it has no ceiling and liking it because it has none of the 25 years of terror and restraint and dead grandfathers that came bundled with it the last time this happened. Goku got the engine and a head injury that made him kind. Shell got the engine. He announces the tournament 10 days out. Ego, spectacle, the whole thing. And every hour of those 10 days he spends doing the one activity that makes him worse. And this is where the series pays off. So let me lay it out properly. Everybody's first instinct is refusal. Nobody fights him, nobody feeds him, he starves. And that's wrong. And Piccolo is the one who says why. An opponent nobody fights just gets bored and puts his hand on the ground. Refusal isn't a strategy. It's a suicide pact with extra steps. So you do the opposite, you feed him. You give him the biggest fight of his life. You drive him up a ladder no body should ever hold. You get him as high as you can possibly get him. And then you take the opponent away in a single instant because the engine doesn't idle. When it runs out of something to push against it, turns around and looks for the densest thing in range. And if their densest thing Zhang, and if there's nothing else there, that's you. The higher he is when the resistance vanishes, the harder it hits. It's the death Goku died on that hill, delivered on purpose, and it takes 3 things. 1. Somewhere empty. This is the piece everybody misses, and it's the piece that makes it work. On Earth, this plan does nothing. On Earth, Cell turns inward, vents, and the planet takes it exactly the way Namek took it, exactly the way a world absorbs what a man can't. Cell walks out of the crater and Earth doesn't exist anymore, so it doesn't happen on Earth. Instant transmission. Goku puts a hand on him and puts them both in deep space, and there is nothing out there. No planet, no rock, no substitute. The vent has nowhere to land except back inside the thing that made it. The kill zone is the same place Goku died. Same altitude problem, same empty sky, same rule. He's been there. He knows exactly what it does. 2. Somebody who can feed him without becoming him. Goku fights the whole thing on the step. Gold held, dialed, stable. Deliberately not opening his own door, which, against something climbing past him by the second, is going to be the hardest thing he has ever done in his life. That's what Yardrat was for. Every hour in that field, holding an exact output, while somebody politely asked him to hold it a bit longer, was for this. For the first time in this entire series, his discipline is a weapon instead of a leash. 3. Somebody outside to call it, because the timing is everything, and Goku cannot judge it from inside. Leave too early, and Cell survives the inward turn. Stay too long, and Cell, who is rising past him every second by design, simply kills him. There's a window. It's maybe 4 seconds wide, and the man in the fight is the last person on Earth qualified to find it. Gohan calls it. And here's the part that makes it elegant. Instant transmission needs a signature to lock onto, and deep space hasn't got one. So Gohan doesn't shout, and nobody uses telepathy. Gohan flares. He lights himself up from the Cell Games arena as hard as he possibly can, and that flare is simultaneously the signal and the beacon. It means now, and it means here, and it's the only thing in that entire sector his father can find. One action. Both jobs, the boy who grew up inside a lie about that hill, is the thing his father steers home by. There's no tournament. Goku walks into the ring, says almost nothing, and gets straight into it, and everybody watching on television thinks it's the most reckless thing they've ever seen, because he's pushing, he's trading. He's letting it go long, which is the exact opposite of every instinct Roshi drilled into him for a decade. Never fight for long, he fights for 11 minutes. And Cell climbs and starts to enjoy it in a way that is genuinely upsetting to watch. And about 8 minutes in he starts winning, and about 10 minutes in Son Goku is being taken apart on live television in front of his wife. Gohan is standing at the edge of the ring with his hands open, counting. Piccolo can't watch. Vegeta can, and doesn't blink, because Vegeta has spent 15 years getting ready to watch something like this. 11 minutes, Goku puts a hand on Cell's chest, takes a hit doing it, a bad one, and they're gone. Nobody sees the rest. There's about 9 seconds of it, and it happens roughly 400 million kilometers from anybody, and the only account anyone ever gets is Goku's, and Goku is not good at describing things. What we know is that Cell is somewhere past anything with a name, and he's happy about it, and he's winning. And that on Earth, in an arena, a boy raises his hands and lights up like a signal fire, and that Cell, mid-swing, finds nothing in front of him. Then the rule does what the rule does. It turns around. It goes looking for the densest thing in range, and there's no planet, no opponent, no 500 billion tons of Namek to take the hit on somebody's behalf. There is one object out there, and it made all of this itself. Cell is consumed by the thing Giro never detected, not injured. Consumed. It isn't damage that regeneration answers, it's the engine eating the host, and it goes all the way down. Every cell, including the one you'd need. The same death Goku died on that hill 15 years earlier for the same reason, exact symmetry. And the only reason anybody knew it was possible is that a man with one arm stood 12 meters away and watched it happen and kept it to himself for 5 years. Goku comes home, beaten half to death and alive, which matters because everything after this needs him breathing, and they're good years. I want to say that because this story has been unkind and these 7 are genuinely good. Gohan grows up. Go 10 happens, Trunks happens. Vegeta becomes a father in a way that surprises everybody, including him. Piccolo learns to sit in a chair. Chi-Chi gets her husband at home for 7 consecutive years, which is more than she got in the previous 15 combined. And Goku is fine. He holds the door. He holds it every day, the way he has since he was 15, and it's routine now, and nobody thinks about it. And that's the problem, because there's one thing nobody has ever said to him in his entire life. Nobody's ever said, put it down. Babbidi's people come to Earth needing energy, an enormous amount of it, more than exists in any battery or reactor or living thing on this planet, because you don't hatch what's in that ball with a wish. You hatch it with a payment. And they survey Earth and find one source that qualifies. So the first move is provocation. That's the whole opening act. Spapovich, Yamu, the tournament, all of it engineered to make one specific man open one specific door in public so they can stand underneath it with a bucket, and it doesn't work. He takes it. He takes all of it. They hurt his friends in front of him, and he holds. They hurt his son in front of him, and he holds, white-knuckled. And I want you to understand that this is the most impressive thing Son Goku does in this entire series, and nobody in the story notices, because holding a door shut looks like standing still. So Babidi changes approach. And this is the part I want to be careful with, because Babidi's magic works on darkness, on malice, on hatred, on the rot at the bottom of a person. And I told you in part 1 that the gentleness in this man is real. The fall changed his mind, not his cells, and the kindness was never a mask. If we break that here, the whole series was a lie, so it isn't darkness Babidi finds. It's exhaustion. 30 years of holding a door shut. 30 years of losing tournaments on purpose. 30 years of never running at full speed, never throwing a full punch, never once in his adult life finding out what he actually is. Standing still while Piccolo lost an arm. Standing still while people he loves got hurt, over and over, because moving was worse. Killing himself on a hill at 25 because it was the only responsible thing left to do. Nobody ever said thank you, because nobody ever knew, and nobody ever said put it down. Babidi doesn't corrupt him. Babidi re-sleeves him. That's the offer. Not power. He's had power since the ward on planet Vegeta. Not revenge. He doesn't want any. The offer is the single thing he has never been given in his entire life, which is permission to stop holding it. And the horror of that scene is that everybody watching understands exactly why he takes it. The M isn't evil. It's surrender. And the energy that comes off a man like that finally letting go, after 30 years, on purpose, with somebody else's hand on the lock, hatches Boo on the first attempt. Here's what Vegeta has been doing for 15 years. He has not been trying to beat Son Goku. He gave that up in a healing tank on Namek when he worked out the arithmetic. What he's been doing instead, quietly, obsessively, in a gravity room, without ever once saying it out loud to a living soul, is preparing for the specific day this happened. He's the only person who saw it coming. He's the only person who ever thought it was a when. And he's the only one whose Super Saiyan is a genuine match for Goku's controlled gold, which means for about 90 seconds, Vegeta is doing something nobody else on this planet could do. And then it stops being 90 seconds, because every second he fights, he's feeding it. That's the trap. And Vegeta knew about the trap before he started, and he went in anyway. Every exchange makes the thing in front of him bigger. He is deliberately, knowingly making it worse. Because worse and slower is better than better and immediate, and somebody needs to buy time. Time for what, though? Because Vegeta doesn't have a plan to win. He never had one. He has a plan to hold, and he's holding, and the thing he's holding for is the only idea anybody's got left. And it isn't his, it's Gohan's. You can't beat him. Fine. Nobody's ever been able to beat him. That was never the shape of this. But there's exactly one thing in this universe that a legendary Super Saiyan cannot hold on to, and everybody in that field has seen him hold it twice. It only works if your heart is clean, so they don't throw a spirit bomb at him. They give him one. The whole planet. Every hand up. Everybody who's ever been saved by him, and everybody who's never heard of him, all of it, offered, freely, to the monster currently tearing a mountain range apart. And the thing about borrowed energy is that it doesn't go into a body that isn't willing to hold it gently. So it's a rescue and a test in the same object. If there's still a man in there, he can take it. If there isn't, it goes straight through him and nothing happens and everybody dies. Vegeta holds him for the whole gather, which takes far longer than anybody has, because gathering always takes longer than anybody has. That's been true since a great ape wouldn't wait 15 years ago. It costs him his life. He knows it will when he steps in. He does it anyway, and he's insufferable about it right up to the end. And the last thing he says is not kind and not sentimental and is, in its way, the most affectionate thing he's ever managed. And a man who has been alone inside his own body since the day he was born, who has never in his life been given anything he didn't have to be afraid of, standing in a crater with an M on his forehead, catches it. He asked Kami for off when he was 15 years old. Kami told him the truth, which was that there is no off, and there never was, and there was never going to be. He never gets it. What he gets at 37 on a broken hillside, holding an armful of energy that belongs to 8 billion strangers, is the only thing that was ever actually available. When? He opens it on purpose, and 90 seconds later, with the job finished, he closes it on purpose, standing up, still himself, in front of everybody. That's it. That's the whole series. Not a power-up. A man learning where the handle is, 37 years and 3 dead planets and 2 dead grandfathers late. Boo doesn't take long after that. I'm not going to pretend it's the climax, because it isn't, and you knew it wasn't. Boo is a very large problem being solved by somebody who can finally reach for exactly as much as the problem requires and not 1 unit more. He's had the strength since the birthing ward. He just got the dial. That's the series. So, what did we actually do here? We took the one variable, the number on the scouter, the only thing separating 2 babies in 2 pods in the same year, and we flipped it. And what came out the other end wasn't a stronger Goku. It was the same man, exactly as kind, exactly as decent, carrying something that made every good thing he ever did cost somebody else. He killed his grandfather at 4 years old and never found out. He killed himself at 25 to keep an explosion off a field with his son in it. He killed a planet at 30 on the same day he saved the universe. And those were the same 10 minutes, and there's no version where you get to separate them. And he was gentle the entire time. That's what I wanted out of this. Not a monster with Goku's face. Goku, all the way down, in a body that never once agreed with him. If you got this far, thank you, sincerely. 5 parts is a big ask, and I know it. Tell me what you'd have done differently. Tell me if you think the Cell answer cheats. I've gone back and forth on it myself. And tell me which what if you want next, because I read them, and the last one on this channel came straight out of the comments. I'll see you in the next one.